Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today's video, if you couldn't tell by the title, is going to be my January wrap up. I know it's a bit late, but I have been so busy with just dog sitting in school and the new semester that I'm in. Life has just been crazy. Honestly, February hasn't been the best reading month, so I did include the one book that I've read in February so far, and it's literally a book that was for school. But let's get started. So the first book I read in January I don't have with me anymore because it was a book for school and I turned it back into our school library, but it is Hamlet by Shakespeare. This is a play and a lot of people have probably read this book for school or are going to have to read it for school. I had to read it for my AP literature class, and honestly I gave this a 2.5, but I feel like I don't even really have a solid rating for it because I've been having to pick it apart in school, and so it's kind of been on my mind and more interesting for some aspects, but it's also a book for school, which I didn't enjoy necessarily. So I don't really have a solid rating for this, but I did put on my little rating app a 2.5. Then I read The Silent Patient, which I was gifted to by a friend for my birthday, and I finally got around to it. I know that this book is really hyped up and talked about, so I'm glad that I finally read it. I gave this book a 4.5 stars, and it was so close to being a 5. I just didn't get that 5-star feeling from it, but I really enjoyed it, and I don't know, I can't talk too much about this because I feel like I could end up giving some pretty hefty spoilers, but it was really good. This book is basically about Alicia and Theo. Alicia killed her husband and has not spoken since, and she was put in a psychiatric hospital. Theo started working at this psychiatric hospital, and he is curious on uncovering the mystery of why she isn't speaking anymore. Then I finished up In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. I started this one in December because it's a Christmas book, but I didn't finish it until January after I finished The Silent Patient. Honestly, this book was kind of hard to get through. It didn't keep my attention span too much, so I ended up rating this one to 2 stars. I felt like I wasn't very involved with it. I feel like maybe if I read it again, I might be a little more interested, but because it took me so long, I just wasn't a big fan of the Groundhog's Day plot, and I wasn't a big fan of the romance. But basically this book is about Malin and her tradition of her family Christmas get-together, and she has to figure out how to move on from this vacation because every single time she tries to, she gets killed in a certain way and gets put back to the plane which is taking her there. Then I finished up the Dreamland Billionaire series, The Final Offer by Lauren Asher. I loved this book. It was my favorite in the entire series, and I was a little worried going into this one because I heard a lot of mixed feelings and mainly bad reviews on this book, but I loved it. Definitely my favorite couple. I loved Cal and Lana so much. I know that she has her first book in her new series Love Redesigned out, and I'm so excited to start that one, especially since it's set in Lake Wisteria, which this book is set in. I'm hoping to maybe get some Cal and Lana snippets in there because I miss the characters in this book so much. I miss the characters in the entire series, but this was easily a 5-star. Then I read The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This was kind of a reread for me because I read this book when I was in 8th grade, but I barely remember anything about it, so I decided to reread it. I gave this book a 2.5 star just because I feel like it's more of a middle schooler book. It's kind of younger writing and just based more for that audience. I also wasn't a big fan of all the science stuff in it, which is odd because I love Ali Hazelwood's books, but I feel like this was kind of mocking religion in a way, which I wasn't a big fan of. I did enjoy Natasha and Daniel's story though, and I'm not a huge fan of Insta-Love, but in this book I did like it because it was on a timeline of they only had one day together. I also liked the culture representation in this book and also how family dynamics can affect you so much as a person. Then I read 2 out of the 4 novels in this collection of interconnected standalones. This book is by Willow Winters and it's called The Highest Bidder series. The first book in the series is Bought. I rated this one 3.5 stars, which now that I'm thinking about it, I might want to lower that rating to a 3 or even a 2.5. I enjoyed it and it kept me entertained. It was super short and sweet. It was only like 200 pages, but there was a lot of heavy topics in that first one. Actually, in all of these, there's a lot of heavy topics, and I feel like 200 pages isn't enough time to really dive into those and to heal the main characters over their traumas. So if you're thinking about getting this book or you're thinking about reading any of the books in this series, really check out the trigger warnings because they're very dark. Like I said, I also read the second book, Sold, and this one was kind of the same thing. I felt like it was even worse as far as just not taking time to really dive into the triggers and heal the main characters over them. So I rated this one a 2.5. It was another really quick read and I enjoyed the couple and I enjoyed the storyline kind of, but I just feel like there could have been so much more to these characters. I will still continue on to the third and fourth books, but I think I'm going to take a break from the series for a while just because the topics were so heavy and they weren't really resolved to the extent that I would have hoped for. But I still enjoy this and I still want to read other books by Willow Winters. Finally, I read Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard. This was another book that I had to read for school and I still have the copy on me because we're still kind of like talking about it and discussing. Again, I didn't rate this book. I don't even have like a rough rating for it. Maybe I will later after we've kind of discussed it more, but honestly, I feel like I can't really rate this, especially since it was so short. This book was basically about two of the soldiers who were inside Shakespeare's Hamlet, and it's their journey of self-discovery and not knowing who they are because in Hamlet they weren't given a backstory. So it's kind of more of a comedy play, but also a emotional play because, spoiler alert, they die at the end. I will say that my teacher thought I was gonna like the comedy inside of it, and there was a couple points that I found funny, but I did enjoy Shakespeare more, and that might be just because the humor was a little better in Shakespeare, and I feel like Hamlet was more of a manic, crazy character. But I enjoyed the topics in this book and it's very well thought through, just with how the guards didn't get a backstory and so they're sitting on this stage not knowing why they're there, not knowing who they are. So I will say it was pretty clever. That's all of the books that I've read this year, really in January, and then this one I finished in February. Hopefully I can get some more done and hopefully I can read a bit more in March. March is National Reading Month, so I'm so excited to do some content for that. Currently, I'm reading Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas, and I really hope to get through that series a little bit more in March. But with that being said, I know that this was a pretty short and sweet video, but I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. If you guys haven't commented, liked, or subscribed yet, make sure you go and do that and check out the other videos that I have on my page. Bye guys!